So Spider-Man Homecoming is coming out on the DVD and Blu-ray and all that fun stuff relatively soon, and Thor Ragnarok's around the corner. So with all this Marvel news and all that fun jazz, especially with like Infinity War coming out and all this other cool stuff, we also happen to notice that one person came out of the gate, and that was Spider-Man. But it's been a long time since we had a Spider-Man game. I believe that the last console Spider-Man game was The Amazing Spider-Man 2, and that was a long time ago. But fear not, we're getting a brand new Spider-Man game just titled Spider-Man, and it's on the PS4. How original. So anyway, with all this crazy cool news in mind that we're getting Spider-Man on the PS4, we're also told that we're getting custom costumes and a lot of other stuff. So it's not entirely just, oh, you can have this, this, or that, but you can have like part of a costume or part of the web shooter gear or this, and this. But a lot of people are just wanting flat costumes. So with this in mind, here, in no particular order, these are my top Spider-Man costumes that I personally want to see in Spider-Man PS4. Now, once again, this is not in any particular order. It's just what came to mind at the time. And not only that, but this is my opinion. This means this is not like the, oh, they have to have those, blah, blah, blah. No, they're allowed to have whatever they want. I'm just stating these are my personal suggestions. So without further ado, let's kick this off with the man behind the mask, Peter Parker. Now, remember when I mentioned that, oh, we should have partial changes for some things? Well, I have an idea where, let's say you wanted to play as Peter Parker, but you wanted a splash of Ben Reilly in there, or something like that, where you could change his hair blonde, or whatever the case may be. But regardless, we should have Peter Parker. Next on the list, I guess, it's not really a list, it's more or less what comes to my mind, is Superior Venom. We don't really get to see too much of Superior Venom, but the idea is this. So, this is around the time where Superior Spider-Man was happening, and Doc Ock was possessing Peter's body. Now, while he was possessing Peter's body, he thought he could control the symbiote, and that didn't go down so well. So, it was pretty much not that much out there. And I'm really glad that, Marvel Legends has a figure of him, but we also didn't get too much of him. So maybe this will be our chance to see more of him. Next on our list is Spider-Man Turn Off the Dark Spider-Man suit. So a lot of people who know me personally know that I love U2. I love U2, I love Bono, I love all that stuff. And when they had this play, Spider-Man Turn Off the Dark, it blew my mind. I actually have a DVD of Spider-Man Turn Off the Dark that I might review sometime. But regardless, the show was, at the very time, pretty spectacular, and it was just really cool. And I'm really glad that I got, a chance to even have the DVD anymore, or to even see what it was even like. Now, the next is on our list, I guess, is the Secret War Spider-Man. Not to be confused with Secret Wars with an S, but it's Secret War Spider-Man according to this description. I don't even know entirely if this was in the comics or not, but I really do love this design. Matter of fact, I actually based on one of my upcoming comic book creations on this costume, so stay tuned for something like that. Next on our table is the Square Enix Spider-Man suit. This was featured in a Square Enix line of Spider-Man toys, or just Marvel toys, I should say. And it's a anti-symbiote suit. Now, since this game is going with the idea of tech and all that is highly important, so I think that with this in mind, it looks pretty techy. So they should go with the whole motif of, Peter Parker has technology. This suit not only can fight symbiotes, but it's also pretty reminiscent of a suit that I will be talking about a little later. So stick around. Next on our table is the Mangaverse Spider-Man. Now, when this came out way back in the day, I actually saw it in a like a Spider-Man collection book entitled Spider-Man Family or something like that, where it had the Spider-Man 2099, it had the regular Spider-Man, it also had I think the symbiote Spider-Man, if I'm not mistaken, and it also had this, and this was my first introduction to the Mangaverse Spider-Man. and I thought it was really cool. It's essentially like Spider-Man, but in anime, and that's the best way I could describe it. Now, going away from, a recent character to a character, at least in timeline, very old. I'm talking about, yes, Spider-Man Noir. I initially did not like this costume. I thought it just stayed away from the formula of Spider-Man, because Spider-Man always had red, or he always had blue. I always associate Spider-Man with red, but that's not the point. The point being is, this Spider-Man takes place in the 30s, and he's kind of like a New York, wise guy type character, and I really like it. And what's interesting to note is this Spider-Man actually does not have like traditional Spider-Man's webbing. It just kind of splatters everywhere. Now, next on our list, we're about to get into something very topical, and a lot of people throw this on their list, but I would really like to see the Scarlet Spider costume. And I'm not talking about Kane's Scarlet Spider. I'm talking about Ben Reilly. Now, this costume, it was at the time anyway, very different from the Spider-Man costume that we all know and love, the underoos, as Tony Stark likes to put it. It's pretty much a red morph suit with a blue hoodie, the web shooters on the outside, large white eyes, and for some reason, for as simple as the suit is, it's very impactful, and I really like how it just looks. I simply just like it, and it will go towards my number one, like, I want this costume. Now, next, we were talking about the Square Enix suit, and it was Anti-Symbiote. This suit, I think the Square Enix based themselves on the Spider-Man Unlimited costume. Now, this costume was essentially the spiritual sequel to the 90s Spider-Man cartoon called Spider-Man Unlimited. Now, this suit was actually developed by Reed Richards, and it's never really stated why he made this suit, but I like to think that he made it just in case if something crazy happened against the symbiotes. I like to think, I have a headcanon that this costume should have been used in Web of Shadows, or something of that nature. Next up, it's not really a canon Spider-Man costume, but it's made by a very, very talented artist that just about every Marvelite knows about, and it's Alex Ross's Spider-Man costume. It looks a lot like Superior Spider-Man's costume, but it's different in some ways to the point where it's kind of its own original thing. Alex Ross made this God knows how long ago. I'll leave it like this. I remember it being an alternate costume in the 2002 Spider-Man 1 movie video game, the one with Tobey Maguire. I love that game. I love those movies. And, so I guess we're just going to be moving on. Next, this is not Spider-Man as a character, but I do see this working well, and it's Agent Venom. I did not get into the Agent Venom comics at all. For some reason, it just didn't really appeal to me, but what did appeal to me was kind of like the ballistic armor look that Venom had, which made him look sleek but powerful. Kind of looked like if he could take a bullet, unlike Andrew Garfield. Now, next up, we're actually getting into some top 5, top 4, whatever, I guess off the top of my head. So I guess these are my last 5 that come off the top of my head. So the number 5 spot is the all-new, all-different Spider-Man 2099 costume. I am in love with this costume. I love the white. I love the black. Now, it's actually a misconception, speaking of the color black. If you look at Spider-Man 2099, the initial suit, you're going to think, oh, that's blue. No. In the original comics, it was actually black, and even the characters referred it to as the man in the black suit. The idea was shading and lighting was very limited, so blue was the color that they used. And they used this trick with the symbiote costumes. So if you look at Ultimate Spider-Man by I can't remember the name of the writer, but I do know the artist Mark Bagley, and he used this effect to make the symbiote look purple. In some of the comics, Venom just looks straight up blue when the symbiote is actually black. Speaking of Mark Bagley, coming in at number 4, it is the traditional Spider-Man costume. And I'm using Mark Bagley as the example because he made probably one of the most, if not the most successful Spider-Man series or series, I guess, sorry, of all time. With the large eyes, you know, it doesn't have the webbing underneath the armpits, which I personally adore, unironically. I think it's kind of cool. But anyways, back to this costume. Whenever somebody thinks of Spider-Man, this comes to mind. So whenever anyone says, whenever anyone draws Spider-Man, they usually draw him with large eyes. And I like to think it's thanks to Mark Bagley's Ultimate Spider-Man. Next on our list, I know I just said, oh, we already have regular Spider-Man. I want Steve Ditko's Spider-Man. I'm talking about with that round, fat spider, the webs underneath the arms, and believe it or not, little Spider-Man trivia, the back spider was blue. It was actually blue when Steve Ditko was drawing and coloring it. I think he colored it. I could be wrong. But he colored it in such a way where it was actually light blue. And I don't think at the time that the art limitation thing was there, because if you look at, the initial drawing for the Amazing Fantasy 15 cover, Spider-Man has those, like, blue outline thing, like how Venom has. So the Amazing Fantasy 15 costume was actually red and black, and only blue on the back spider. Little interesting tidbit. And plus, if this game is supposed to be like the Arkham Knight of Spider-Man video games, I think that this is what you should do. Give him his very, very first costume. At least in... the wrestler costume was the first costume. But I'm talking about like the first real Spider-Man costume. I mean, shoot, Batman Arkham Knight had the purple glove costume, so why can't Spider-Man PS4 have Steve Ditko? And number 2, it's only because I never see this suit outside of, let's say, Spider-Man Edge of Time. It is Ben Reilly's Spider-Man costume. You know, the one with the half boot and the spider that connects from the front to the back. This is my favorite Spider-Man costume of all time. I don't care who you are, this is the best one. Because the idea is people want the large spider symbol. There it is. You want the large Mark Bagley style eyes. There you go. In Spider-Man Homecoming, a lot of people are starting to warm up to the outside web shooters. This initially had it. And not only that, I feel like this costume kind of symbolizes what the 90s and early 2000s kind of wanted. Where it was like, it was different, it was edgy, but at the same time, in my eyes, it looked like classic Spider-Man with a little extra added to it. I don't know. There's something about it that I love that no one else seems to do, that no one else seems to have, but I genuinely love it. And last but not least, this is not Peter Parker. It is his clone. No one's gonna like this simply because of the backlash that it had in the initial start of its run. I am subscribed to this comic. It is one of my absolute favorite Spider-Man runs, or should I say, the all-new Scarlet Spider costume. It's the one with the blue hoodie and the one where everyone said it's a color swap, or rather a ripoff of Spider-Side and Spider-Gwen fused together. I don't know why no one liked this costume. When it first came out, I get that the smile was kind of much. It was just a crease to show that he was smiling and he was back in action. I love this costume. No one else does. I love it. It's initially drawn by Mark Bagley, and of course, he is the, if not the best Spider-Man artist ever. And he just drew the initial cover so well. And I also love those finger spike things that connect to the gloves. And you can even see, like, he even drew in, like, the seams and all that. But that's not important. What's important is how the suit looks. And I just adore this suit. This suit is just absolutely really cool. It's like the male Spider-Gwen. And everyone loves Spider-Gwen, so why can't people give this one a chance? And with that, I guess that's going to be the end of this video. That was my top whatever Spider-Man costumes. Once again, this is not in any particular order, even though the top 5 were in a particular order. I just really want to see these come to life in a video game where I feel like I'm my own Spider-Man. I am my own creation, because a lot of people design their own Spider-Man costumes. So in this game, you get to design your own costume, and if you want alternate costumes, I feel like these are the ones that they should include, simply because this is the ultimate experience for being Spider-Man, especially if you watch the gameplay trailer. Ugh, it looks so great. So great. So I guess with that, I'm signing off. In my next video, it's going to be another Spider-Man PS4 video, but it's not about Peter or Spider-Man himself. You will see. I'll catch you guys next time.